Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. We are just going to wait another minute before we get things started. We have a few more people joining, so I'll just wait another minute. Okay, I think we've had a good amount of people join. Welcome. My name is Becky Wasserman, and I'm the Director of Economic Empowerment in the State Treasurer's Office. I am going to do a presentation on the Vermont Saves program, which we will be launching in a few weeks. Before I get started, I actually just wanted to hand it over to Luann Beninati from Let's Grow Kids, who's just going to say a few words about the Vermont Saves program and why it was important that we wanted to have this webinar today.
Thanks, Becky. It says my mic is disabled. Is it working? Okay, perfect. Thanks, everybody, and welcome. I'm so excited about what you're going to hear about this afternoon. For low and middle income Vermont workers, many who work for smaller companies with few benefits, saving for the future historically has been both a worry and an issue that has been out of reach to address. All Vermont employers depend on the childcare system to support their workers to show up day after day, and the childcare workforce is one of those sectors who have been left out of the opportunity to save for the future. Vermont Saves changes that, and I'm so excited to have you all hear about it. So on behalf of Let's Grow Kids, we are so pleased to be here today and to hand it back over to Becky and let you hear about all the details of this great new opportunity for Vermont employees.
Thank you so much, Luann. And I just want to mention that Luann has been on our advisory board and really helped with the launch of this program. So thank you. I'm just going to share my screen here. Great. So as I mentioned, my name is Becky Wasserman, and I'm the Director of Economic Empowerment in the Office of the State Treasurer. I'm directing the launch of the Vermont Saves program, and this is the last in a series of webinars we're hosting about the program. These webinars have been open to anyone in any industry, but we have tried to focus them. So this one is on childcare, specific to childcare, early educators, and medical service providers. But of course, it's open to anyone, and I'm happy to answer questions from relevant to any industry. I know we have just an hour, so I wanted to provide an agenda of what we will talk about today. First, I'm going to talk about the retirement landscape in Vermont. Then I'll explain the Vermont Saves program in more detail. What does it mean for employers and what does it mean for employees? I'll also talk about some key dates for implementing the program. And then finally, at the end, I'll answer some frequently asked questions that we have been getting. And after that, I'll leave some time for questions that I may have missed. We do have plenty of time for questions at the end, so I'll ask that you wait to submit any questions that you have until after the presentation is done. You can ask a question by clicking on the raise hand button or submitting it through the chat. With that, we can get started. So I wanted to first take a moment to look at the retirement landscape in Vermont. Luann touched on this a little, but part of the reason that we have the Vermont Saves program is that Vermonters, like most Americans, are facing a retirement savings crisis. So we've estimated that approximately 40% of Vermonters lack a workplace retirement plan, which amounts to around 80,000 private sector employees in the state. And you'll see that these percentages are more significant based on the size of an employer and the location in the state. So among employers with 20 or few employees, about 55% do not offer retirement benefits. And then when you look at the Burlington area, while about 60% of employers offer a plan in that area, only about 50% of employers in the rest of the state do. And this lack of a workplace retirement plan is significant because an individual is actually 15 times more likely to save for retirement if there is a workplace plan in place. And so for this reason, programs like Vermont Saves can really make a difference in expanding access to retirement savings for everybody. So how can Vermont Saves help? We are hoping that this program increases the economic security for Vermonters in retirement by providing this opportunity to save through your employer. As I mentioned, research shows that this will greatly increase the likelihood of an employee saving for the future. And as an employer, the program also allows you to offer a benefit you might not otherwise be able to provide, and it's at no cost to you. So we want to ensure that all Vermonters are able to retire with dignity. And this is why the state cares about this issue and why the state legislature enacted the program last year in 2023. So how do we know that Vermont Saves will work to meet these goals? Vermont is not the first state to enact such a program, which we call a state auto IRA program. So as you'll see, I have on the screen a list of the active state auto IRA programs that are around the country, and Vermont is the 11th state to launch a program. There are also a number of other states that have enacted legislation but have not yet launched a program. Most recently in 2024, there's Rhode Island and Washington. So this is really something that is being talked about around the country and being used in many other states to try to address this problem. And I also just wanted to mention that in the spring of this year, the Treasurer's Office announced that it was entering into a multi-state consortium called the Partnership for a Dignified Retirement that's led by the state of Colorado, which is on that active program list, to help us implement Vermont Saves. The states of Maine and Delaware were already part of this partnership. So we have the benefit of being in this partnership. It's allowed us to get up and running more quickly. We were, I think, the fastest state in the country to get our auto IRA program launched, mostly because of our partnership with these states. We've learned from what they've done, and we've experienced a lot of cost savings and lowered fees to implement the program as a result of the partnership. Who does Vermont Saves impact? Vermont Saves requires that all employers with 5 or more Vermont employees, so that is all employees who have W-2 income that's attributable to Vermont and do not offer a workplace retirement plan, enroll their employees into the program. Employers must also have been in business for 2 years. As for employees, they must be 18 years old and have a Social Security number or individual taxpayer identification number. These last two are required because we are opening a Roth IRA account, and these are federal requirements associated with opening this type of account. If you are an employer and you already offer a workplace retirement plan, then you are exempt from participation in Vermont Saves. For reference, I've listed here examples of qualified plans that would exempt you from the program. such as a 401k, a simple, or SEP. So if you already offer one of these plans, then you are not required to participate in the program. I will talk a little more about that exemption process later on in this presentation. On this slide, I'm going to talk about the primary features of Vermont Saves that you need to know about. First, it's an automatic enrollment program for employees. What this means is that the employer automatically enrolls the employee, but the employee can choose to opt out if they don't want to participate. It is, of course, voluntary for employees to participate in the program, and they can opt out or back in at any time. Another feature is that this is a public-private program. It's facilitated by the state treasurer's office, but we have partnered with a company called Vestwell to serve as the program administrator and record keeper for the program. Vestwell has a background in running these types of public-private partnerships and currently manages 9 of the 11 active Auto IRA programs that I mentioned earlier. Vestwell also partners with BNY Mellon, which is a large custodial bank. So all of the Roth IRA accounts that are open for savers are custodied at BNY Mellon. And then finally, I wanted to mention that one of the goals and features of the program is that we want to make this as easy as possible for both employers and employees. And I'll talk about the enrollment process next and how we try to do that. So as an employer, you have essentially 3 things you need to do to comply with this program. First, you need to register your employees on the Vermont Saves portal. Second, you need to send employee contributions through payroll. And finally, you need to do what we call ongoing maintenance. And what I mean by that is continuing to send those payroll contributions. And then you also have to onboard any new employees in the program or take out any employees that separate from your business. I have sat in on some of these employer enrollment sessions, and it is a pretty easy and fast process to upload the information through the Vermont Saves portal. It can be done in less than a half an hour, and I'll show you a little bit more about what that will look like in a moment. First, I just want to be clear about what you are responsible for as an employer and what you are not responsible for. So for employers, there is no cost for Vermont Saves. You will not incur any account or other administrative fees when you register. There is also no plan sponsor liability. So this is not an employer-sponsored plan. The law is very clear that employers have no liability for the program. And finally, employers are not able to provide any contributions, any matching contributions to their employees' accounts. So I talked a little about how it works for employers, and now I'll turn to how it works for employees. As I mentioned, the employee will be auto-enrolled in the Roth IRA account. The default contribution set by law is 5%, which will be deducted from their paycheck. There is also an auto escalation provision in the law, which is 1% per year up to a maximum of 8%, which is something that would happen once per calendar year. An employee would be notified of this each year, of that 1% increase of their contribution rate. So it would not be a surprise to them when it occurs, and they would have some options of how to handle that. These default rates are set by law. We've also chosen default investments options if an employee makes no other choice. And how this would work is in the first 30 days, funds would be kept in a capital preservation fund or a money market fund, and then it would be invested in a target date suite of funds with an expected retirement age of 65. These are funds that get more conservative as an employee reaches their anticipated retirement age. I have just talked about the default options of the program, but another main feature of Vermont Saves is that employees have choices about whether they want to participate, and if they do want to participate, what that looks like. An employee can decide that now is not the time for them to start saving and completely opt out of the program. If they stay in the program, it is entirely up to the employee, the percent of wages they contribute, and how they choose to invest amongst the options we provide. So rather than using that default contribution rate of 5% that I mentioned, an employee can decide that right now they are only comfortable contributing, for example, 2%, or they could decide they'd like to save more for retirement and increase that amount. Employees can also customize their investment options. In addition to the target date fund, there is an international fund or a bond fund, and this month we are adding a domestic asset class. So employees can have any mix between these funds, such as 50% in the international fund and 50% in the bond fund. It's completely up to them how they customize it. In order to inform employees more about these investment options, we do have information on our website that goes into more detail about those investments. On this slide, I'm going to go into a little more detail about how the enrollment process works. So first, as an employer, you will receive an email if we have your email address on file. If not, you will receive a letter in the mail, and that correspondence will have an access code and instructions on how to enroll your employees using the Vermont Saves portal. So you would go to the website in the letter or the email and log in using that access code. Next, once you're in the portal, you would upload the information, and that your employer uploads your employee information, and then you do nothing for 30 days. During that 30-day period, Vestwell will send notifications to employees to let them know that they've enrolled, and that unless they take action in that 30-day period, 5% of their gross check will be deducted and contributed to their Roth IRA. So essentially what that means, if they take no action during that 30-day period, they will go into that default contribution rate and the default investment. We let the employees know they've been enrolled and they have options, so they can, as I mentioned, do nothing and have those defaults. They can also customize contributions amounts or investment options or opt out. We do communicate with employees 3 times during that 30-day period so that they are aware of all of these choices. After that period, they are enrolled in the program. If an employee doesn't opt out and is enrolled in the program, then the employer is notified ahead of their next payroll after that 30-day period has ended of the amount of the contribution, so they know they have to make the payroll deduction. Depending on your normal course of your payroll, this could be up to 2 weeks after that 30-day period has ended. But we do let you know ahead of time that the employee is enrolled, they have a contribution rate, and that you'll need to make those contributions during your next payroll. As I mentioned, an employer who is not exempt from the program will be sent an access code to enroll their employees. This access code will come by email, and if we have no email address on file, it'll be sent in the mail. And this is just a picture of what that login will look like on the Vermont Saves portal website. So you would have to include your employer identification number and your access code to begin that enrollment process. Next, you'd be asked for basic company information like your address, contact name, and details. And then after that is when you would enroll your employees. I also mentioned that one of our goals is to make this a fast and easy process for both employers and employees. I wanted to highlight that we do have a robust help center on the website that will have answers to FAQs, fact sheets, checklists, and short how-to videos for employers and employees. There should be an article or video on here for almost any step of the process that you need to do. And obviously, if you can't find anything there, you can reach out to us or to Bestwell. There's some contact information on the website as well to talk to someone. I've touched on many of these points about what this means, this program means for your employees, but I wanted to stress one of the points on here, which is that the Roth IRA account that is being set up is completely portable for your employees. So it is their own account and they get to keep it. So if an employee gets to it gets a new job, moves jobs, moves out of state, they will have the option to just keep the account and continue making contributions outside of their payroll, or to roll it over into another plan if they leave for a job that offers a workplace retirement plan. If they leave for another job that is also participating in Vermont Saves, then they can just set themselves up with that new employer to have payroll deductions made into the account. Here are some key dates that I wanted to highlight for the launch of the program. So in October, we launched our pilot program to 7 businesses around the state. At this point, we have 4 of those employers have completely gone through that process of that 30-day period and have started their payroll contributions. And we already have opened and funded accounts in the program. The remaining 3 employers in the pilot program will all get through their payroll processes in the next couple of weeks. We plan to open enrollment for everyone in the first week of December, so coming up really soon. And so at that point, the first week in December is when we will start sending out notifications to employers to let you know that we think you need to comply by enrolling your employees and opening accounts for them through the Vermont Saves program. Enrollment will then stay open until the end of February, so we have a few-month period for you to register your employees. So before I get to your questions, I want to answer some questions that regularly come up. One of the frequent questions we get is about who is considered an employee for the purposes of this program. So first, with respect to seasonal, part-time, and temporary employees, they are all eligible for the program and count towards that 5-employee threshold if they work for you for 500 hours or more in a calendar year. So we really wanted to make this program as expansive as possible and make retirement savings accessible to as many employees as we can. And often those seasonal, temporary, and part-time employees are sort of left out of receiving these kinds of benefits through their workplace. I do want to note that an employer under the law does have 120 days from the date that an employee starts with them to enroll them in the program. So depending on when you as an employer choose to enroll your employee in that 120-day period, if they're a temporary employee, that might factor into whether or not that employee can actually enroll in the program if they're sort of enrolled in the last couple of weeks of their employment with you. And I just also wanted to note that seasonal, temporary, and part-time employees also still need to meet the other requirements of being 18 years old, having a social security number, and having a W-2 attributable income to Vermont. Another question we get about who is an employee is whether business owners are considered employees. And the answer is that they are if they receive a W-2 income. Next, we have gotten questions about whether an employer is considered exempt if they offer a plan to only some of their employees. We consider that employer to be exempt even if the plan is not offered to all employees at that business. If you are exempt from the program because you already offer a qualified workplace retirement plan and you do still receive a communication from us, you can certify your exempt status on our website using the access code you received. So, I showed that page before where you could log into the portal. So you'd give your employer identification number, your access code, and when you logged in, there would just be a box to check that says that you are certifying that you're exempt because you already offer a plan. So it's a pretty quick process to just say that the program does not apply to you. Finally, so I mentioned that employees have the ability to opt out during that 30-day period, but a few months down the road decide they do want to have this IRA account. They have the flexibility to enroll at any time. And so this next question, you were many of you might be nonprofits here today. So one of the questions we get is, what type of businesses does this program apply to? So it does apply to both for-profit and nonprofit organizations. So if you are a nonprofit with 5 or more employees and you don't offer a workplace retirement plan, then you will be required to register your employees. This next question I just touched on, but in terms of how long an employer has to enroll their employees, they have 120 days from when a new employee starts at their organization to enroll them into the program. In terms of penalties, so we are receiving, positive feedback about the program, and are hopeful that everyone will be excited about enrolling. But I do want to note that the statute that creates the Vermont Saves program does impose penalties per employer per month for failure to comply. So by statute, we may begin imposing penalties of $10 per employee per month for a business that doesn't enroll by October 1st of 2024. And then this increases to $20 per employee by between October 1st, 2025 to October 1st, 2026. And then after October 1st, 2026, it is increased to the maximum penalty, which is $75 per employee per month. And so I've touched on the fact that this program is a no-cost plan for employers, and also wanted to stress again that employers are not able to contribute to an employee's account under the Vermont Saves program. And then finally, we do get questions about whether an employee can participate in Vermont Saves even if they work for an employer with less than 5 employees. So right now, the law actually only mandates an employer to enroll their employees if they have 5 or more employees. So you would not receive any communication from us if you have less than 5 employees. However, it is still possible for an employee to enroll themselves into the program. So this would be a voluntary participation in the program. It would just look a little bit different. So they would be responsible for setting up the account on their own, and they would have to set up automatic deductions for contributions from their own bank account, as opposed to being auto-enrolled through their employer and having contributions made through their payroll deductions. On this slide, I've provided some contact information for us. We we'll have final email addresses and phone numbers by the time we launch next week, or sorry, beginning of December. But for now, this is what we have just in our pilot phase. And I'm happy to answer any other questions now. And of course, encourage you to write down these contact details and reach out with any questions if anything comes up in the future. So with that, I will stop sharing and see if there are any questions.
I got a quick question, I guess. Do you know, I don't know if other people, I'm using Gusto. There's all these payroll services out there. Are they fairly adept at adapting these, this program or?
Yes, so I'll say that Vestwell has like 360 integrations with certain payroll providers. Gusto happens to be one of them. So that payroll provider in particular is a very easy process.
Perfect.
There, are other payroll providers that don't have that integration. So what you would need to do is it would be to have your payroll provider add sort of a line for the withholding, and then you could upload, and then you would make a report of that, and you could manually upload that or directly upload that into the Vermont Saves portal so that you can get those contribution amounts put into the system. And I guess, and on this point, I just wanted to note that we have heard some sort of misinformation going around about payroll providers. So, I do want to be clear that the state and Vestwell are not charging any cost to do this program. It is possible that a payroll provider they could choose to charge for this. But we have found that when we've dug into what these charges are for, sometimes they're sort of, trying to sell a product outside of the Vermont Saves program. So if you do come up with that, you should feel free to reach out to me so we can kind of look into what the service fee would actually be for. Because typically just adding a withholding item on your payroll should not be a huge cost. So I'm happy to work with anyone on that issue if it comes up.
Okay. And I guess I'll ask because I am a dispensary in Randolph. I mean, I'm in the cannabis industry, and that disqualified me from Gusto's 401k. I assume since it's legal in Vermont that that's not an issue.
Yes, cannabis businesses can participate in the Vermont Saves program. We have a cannabis business participating right now in our pilot, so you are eligible to participate.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I do see a question in the chat about having employees who are not U.S. citizens who have temporary work permits and whether they can participate. So the answer is yes, and it depends. So they would need to have an ITIN number to participate. If they have a work permit, they probably have that. And then a U.S. address. That sometimes we've heard some challenges with folks who are not U.S. citizens and here temporarily who don't have like a U.S. address on file. So that could be a challenge just for the compliance, sort of know your customer aspect of opening up the bank account. But if they are have a U.S. address, they're 18 and they have their ITIN, the answer is yes. I think the only question as an employer that you would have is when you enroll that individual into the program. So if you know that they're only here for a set period of time, you'd want to probably do that enrollment as soon as possible so that they could get the benefit of it, since there is that 30-day waiting period. So, you know, and particularly if they come back year to year, you could sort of open the account, have it get set up, and then know that it's there for when they come back the next time. And hopefully that answers your question, but let me know if you need any more information. And I do see in the chat that there is language pasted here about the launch of the program in phases. So that legislative language was how the program was originally passed by the legislature in 2023. In the Budget Adjustment Act in January of 2024, which was, I believe, passed in March or April of this year, we actually did away with that phased implementation schedule. And so it is open to employers of any size above 5 or more employees as of December 1st. There is a question about whether employees can withdraw funds from the account. So these are post-tax dollars in a Roth IRA account. So the answer is yes. You can withdraw any interest on the account without any penalty to you. The next question is whether it matters if employees are full-time or part-time. The answer is no. Part-time employees, if you expect that they're working 500 hours or more over the course of the year, can participate in the program. The next question is if you have employees who are under 18 or work fewer than 500 hours a year, do they count toward that employer headcount? And the answer is no. So you can't participate if you're 18, and you're not considered an employee if you work less than 500 hours a year. I see another question about whether the contribution withholdings are intended to be pre-tax. No, they're post-tax, as I mentioned, in it's a Roth IRA account. The next question is the latest date by which employers with more than 5 employees must begin participating. So our enrollment period ends at the end of February. As I mentioned, you can, we hope that you enroll your employees by that date. If you choose not to, you know, we do, as I mentioned, have the authority under the law to begin imposing penalties on businesses that don't comply with the law. We will provide grace period and opportunity to avoid those penalties. So the maximum penalties go into effect October 1st, 2026 of $75 per employee per month. But the goal is to try to get everyone to enroll by the end of February. The next question is whether the contribution can go to an already established IRA. And the answer is that if someone has another IRA account, we don't consider that a workplace retirement plan that exempts you from the program. So you would be enrolling your employees to contribute to the Roth IRA account in Vermont Saves. What the employee would have to keep in mind is that there are annual limits on the amounts that you can contribute to a Roth IRA account. So if they do have another Roth IRA account, somewhere else. They would just have to make sure the combined amounts that they're contributing don't exceed that limit. We have the ability on our system to let you know if you are reaching that limit and would notify an employee of that, but we wouldn't know if they are contributing to another account somewhere else. The last question I see is if whether you know some employees are not interested in the program, whether you still have to go through the process of enrolling them so they can opt out, and the answer is yes. That is the requirement of the law, is that you as an employer have to enroll your employees, and then it's up to your employees to decide how they want to proceed. Great. I do see a question from Kathy. I don't know if you're on mute. It doesn't look like you are, but I can't hear your question.
Becky, I'm seeing Kathy submitted a question in the Q&A asking if quarterly fees. Yep.
Yeah, so the fees, there are fees associated with the program, and they do come out of an employee's account. So our fee structure is a hybrid model that uses both a dollar-based fee and an annual asset-based fee. So the dollar-based fee is $26 annually, and that comes out, that is divided up quarterly. So a little over $8 per quarter would come out of the employee's account. And then there's an annual asset-based fee of approximately 0.32%. So that would mean you would pay approximately 32 cents for every $100 in your account annually.
Looks like we just got two more questions in the chat. One about getting a head start on the process or needing to wait until the employer is contacted by the state.
Yeah, so the answer is if you think you qualify for the program because you have 5 or more employees and you don't have a workplace plan, if you don't get a letter from us in the first week of December, you can feel free to go to our website and call the customer service number and just get an access code that way so you can enroll yourself as soon as possible, or enroll your employees as soon as possible. The next question is whether ADP will have an integration. That I'm afraid I don't know the answer to, because that is a process that is between the payroll provider and Vestwell. So we as the state don't have any control over who they can partner with to figure out that integration process. So unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that.
Becky, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. Can you repeat what you were saying about fees to the employee? I thought you said $30 a year on 100. Is that what you said?
No, there's a hybrid fee. So it's a model where we have a dollar-based fee and an annual asset-based fee. So there is a set dollar-based fee of $26 per year that's split up quarterly. And then on top of that, there's a asset-based fee that is based on the amount that's in your account, and that is 0.32%. So what that comes out to is basically for every $100 in your account, you would have 32 cents charged.
Thank you.
And not seeing any additional questions, but I did just want to mention that, after we wrap up this afternoon, we'll be sending a recording of this webinar to everybody who has signed up. So just wanted to highlight that.
Thanks, David. And I do see a question from Tasha.
Thanks. Could you just repeat what you said about if you have part-time employees that work at other organizations and also max contribution levels?
Sure. So if you have a part-time employee that is anticipated to work 500 hours or more a year, they are counted as part of your 5-employee threshold. So they can, you would enroll them in the program. If they work part-time somewhere else, I guess the scenarios would be that they also work for another business that participates in Vermont Saves, or they don't. So what they can do is also have contributions made through that other employer, or they could opt out. Or if they are receiving income from another employer but want to contribute more into their account, they can just set up an automatic deduction into their pay from their bank account and contribute into their account. And then in terms of the IRA limits, I believe in 2024, the max amount is $7,000, and then an additional $1,000 if you are 50 or older. I'm not positive what that goes up to in 2025, but I think there'll be a little increase to that.
Becky, so in the kit where you have 2 part-time, they work in 2 different, do they they'll have 2 unique accounts?
No,
Maybe
you would have one account. It's just you could be contributing from both employers.
But you only have 1 account.
Yes.
Okay. It's not specific to the employer.
No, it's specific to the individual.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. If you do think of something and you please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer any follow-ups from this, and we will be posting this recording as well. But I just wanted to say thank you. I think this is our best attended webinar in our series, so I appreciate everybody taking the time to spend an hour with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Becky.
Thanks. Bye.